Hello my friends of Cosmic Agency, my name is Gosha. Before we continue with the very interesting technical conversations that Dale had with Yazhi, I'm going to share with you two-part video which we just recently had with Yazhi, and I want to share it with you now because it's actual, it's current, it's regarding the situation on Earth and whether or not the Federation should or not and can or not be helping the humans on Earth. And this video will be made in two parts, and the first part is going to be shared with you today. It's quite long, but it's very important you understand all these different points, because as Yazhi explains over and over again, it is the people from the inside, from the Earth, that have the power to influence the changes and make those changes happen. There are different perspectives here to be considered, and just remember, it is not just this perspective or that perspective that is right or valid. There are different angles to look at this from, and she will be presenting it from all these different angles. But the main point is always us from within are the Federation. We are those members of the Federation, being their shadows, being their reflections, because it's all connected, a unity. And here I want to make a point. In the video you will see the term mirrors being mentioned, that the Federation members has mirrors on Earth. This topic is quite complex and quite difficult perhaps for 3D minds to understand, but I just want to explain very briefly what mirrors are. When you have a person in 5D, it very often creates, he or she very often creates a mirror reflection on Earth that looks just the same, but it's not exactly that person. So that's why, among other reasons, the topic of photos is very delicate, among many other reasons, because many times the mirrors of them can be found on Earth, and they are occupied with their lives and not knowing anything about their equivalents in 5D. So it is a very delicate subject. So this is what it is being referred to as mirrors. However, the topic is very complex, and I hope maybe one day we can discuss this in more detail. And then I want to distinguish it from the law of mirrors being mentioned by Yazhi also. So you don't confuse these two terms here. The law of mirrors she is referring to as the law in which, the metaphysical, universal, natural law in which, by perceiving certain things, observing and looking at certain things, you will be recreating and manifesting and generating more of the same. So what you are looking at, you will reflect, the mirrors. And this is one of the reasons why the situation on Earth is so complex, so messed up, because we are living under this law of mirrors, and we believe we are victims and helpless and powerless, so we're going to be reflecting more of that, and that's what's meant by the law of mirrors here in this context. Remember, it's going to be different than Federation having mirrors on Earth. That's a different subject. This topic is going to answer many of your questions, I'm sure, and stay tuned for the next part, because the next part is also highly fascinating, and it was a group chat that we had with Yazhi, Lina, our new contactee, Estela, and Christina, and myself. And we all were bombarding Yazhi with questions, and she was so patient and so passionately explaining to us everything so we can understand. So stay tuned for that video as well. It will be an important one. Well, enjoy the video, and until the next one.
What I will say won't be received well, but people must save themselves. And the only way to access the Federation, who is really controlling Earth must be done from the surface, not from here. I know people want us to go and solve the problem from here, us confronting the Federation from here. It does not work like that. We have no one to go against. The door to the Federation can only be opened from the surface by simple people, broken shoes. There are not enough broken shoes, and they have no great impact, since all is in the hands of the media to direct the masses. If the solution is on Earth, I still believe the media part is crucial. That's what shapes the main collective here, not the broken shoes much. And why can't you address the controllers from above? I am not clear on why not. And just as the broken shoes here are too few, the same applies to you rebels up there. Telling humans to win this alone is like me telling you, organize yourselves up there and transform the Federation. Easier said than done. Why? Because broken shoes are the controllers. And you and Robert and Christina and Estella are the instruments with which Taygeta is trying to contact the controllers. The broken shoes are manifesting a horrible situation for themselves. And even though they do not want it at an individual level, at a collective unconscious level, they do manifest the nightmare. Not because they want that, because they don't, but they are still manifesting, bringing the genocide up to themselves because of the bad nature of the law of mirrors. What about the Federation level controllers? You said they were in Saturn. They are the ones setting up the plans and keeping things like injections in motion. They could easily dismantle it all, but they are not. Setting people into the trap for their own destruction. So they are an accomplice and part of the controller system, preventing you from taking over the media. Why prevent that? Give people a different message in the media and let's see what they start to manifest. You can't be expecting rainbows being manifested from the minds who are fed nightmares. Feed them something different and then see what they manifest. Or at least do not censor the alternative views so people can choose. They are not given an option to choose. Yazhi, this is unbalanced, beyond fair. Broken shoes or not, if they are fed lies, they will fall into it. Most races in 5D still believe Federation being all good or whatever. They are also matrixed, even up there. You yourself said that. How do you expect people in 3D to suddenly unite and defeat this? Real people, broken shoes, either are the same people in the Federation who control this as literal mirrors of them, or the system is only set up as to only be able to access the Federation from Earth, as incarnated there, starseeds or not. Or, seeing this from an earthbound perspective, it would also be valid to see as the Federation not really existing for them. It is in another plane of existence. So, from that point of view, there is no Federation on seeing what happens on Earth. And whatever happens there is only as the direct result of the law of mirrors and the formation of a clear collective unconscious that amounts to being the matrix itself. So as long as the people create that collective unconscious that in turn is creating the mess, it cannot be stopped. So by the law of mirrors, if they only see regressive things, then they will only get more of that, creating the vicious circle they are in. The Federation level controllers are the direct creation or result of the collective unconscious of the people of Earth. They are a mirror of one another. That's why the ones in Saturn are so regressive. It is the people again, with all their vices: bureaucracy, corruption, greed. You said they will manifest negative if all they see is negative, law of mirrors. Exactly. They will get more of regressive things if all they see are regressive things. That's why media takeover or removal of censorship at least is crucial. Without it, I say, it's all doomed. And those that are in control of that are not broken shoes, but Illuminati, who are linked to Saturn levels. So those need to be removed. I know you say that you want to hear Yazhi, but I want to quote Carl Jung again, who also claims that the kings and gods on and off Earth are the direct creation of the people themselves. Quoted from the in-book comment, The Tibetan Book of the Dead, published in 1925. Who is Yazhi a creation of? Aneka, Ragel. You exist. No one here has created you. The opposite, it's you who are creating mirrors down here. Because of you, those mirrors exist. From one level, we are all creations of ourselves. And as in that same book, Jung claims that people cannot easily handle a double-edged sword statement, being that kings and gods exist both as the direct creation of the people, the collective matrix, and also existing on their own by their own means. Interestingly enough, Jung, back in 1925, when he wrote this, actually used the very word matrix. What about people down here existing as a creation of those above? I think that's even more true. Mirrors, immersed 5D people in 3D avatars, etc. A mirror would not create its reflection ever, because they are just angles of the same thing, as seen from a more expanded perspective. So there are no mirrors as such, only as an idea or partial explanation of why someone may exist in more than one place at the same time. Yes, but what I mean is that I, Gosha, am a creation of my 5D self and above. Gosha exists because she is a reflection of me in 5D and higher, not reverse. They are part of the same thing. No, you did not create her, nor did she you. You are just one, period. I understand, but my point is, humans down here did not really create the Federation, when looking specifically that way. In other words, they are not getting away with it. And if we are all reflection and creation of each other, and there are no densities, and we are all one, as in ourselves above and us down here, so in theory and practicality, it matters not through what side we access the problem. It can be accessed from down here and from up there as well. And even better, from both sides at once. There are no sides. Either way side you address the problem, the solution will reflect. From my, or the Taiketan perspective, no, indeed, the humans did not create the Federation. Yet, from their perspective, they did, and they not only control it, but create and modify it all the time. In that case, I could only access the Federation from Earth, and not from here where I'm sitting. reason why I need you and your YouTube channels to make myself be heard. The lowest point of creation is also the highest from another perspective, due to the cyclical nature of existence. Reason why I'm always saying you all there are the real gods. The problem is that you there function in a creative mode that only operates from the collective unconscious and not from an individual power point or view. This because it is the nature of the existence there. To be an apparent victim of the experience there is the matrix itself. The key words here are collective unconscious. So that must be made aware to the people, because I seriously doubt many have even heard of the collective unconscious as the reason and the point from where everything is manifested into their lives. Okay, forgive my insisting, but I still don't understand why the Federation in 5D can be accessed only through 3D. If you are in 5D, where the Federation is, aren't you closer? The part we can access from here, the 5D Federation you are referring to, is the part we have been dealing with. And they also claim that they cannot access what is controlling everything from above. That indeed happens to be below, meaning the point of view of broken shoes. Again, as I have said so many times, and people cannot grasp why, broken shoes is the key and the only ones who can solve the problems of Earth. You say they cannot organize? So be it. Then they will experience the pain and the hardship of not having been able to organize. I am not grasping that part. And they, the Federation, also claim that they cannot access what is controlling everything from above, that indeed happens to be below. Why is that above level below? That above level you said was in Saturn, not Earth. The Federation here claims that Saturn only says that they are there, but are not controlling Earth, or they even do not acknowledge having anything to do with the problem. What is going on is that from here, we, or the Federation in the Andromeda biosphere, can only access the limited part of the mirrors of the people living on Earth, 5D mirrors with little to no power, because who is controlling it all is the collective on Earth, from Earth. So, from that point of view, and even though it is Saturn who is controlling Earth, so to speak, the real controllers are the people on Earth, broken shoes, using the collective unconscious for better or worse. So, I can also explain this as no one is controlling Earth but the collective unconscious. From a 5D Federation point of view, it amounts to also letting the humans do whatever they do in the name of free will, even though it results in a sick, psychopathic game that is only getting worse and worse because of the direct action of the law of mirrors the human unconscious collective is subject to. So, you say that Saturn is not infiltrated by reptiles? Not controlling strongly what is happening on Earth? If so, why do they impede you from working? Why do they hate you? Why do they order you to leave? People on Earth are not making that happen. It is not infiltrated by reptilians in the simplistic sense that there are reptiles with guns there. It can be said that the collective has infiltrated the 5D Federation with a clear reptilian way of being, or even using the regressive reptilians the collective unconscious has also spawned into existence. It is still controlled by that collective unconscious. As I said, it is hard to grasp the fact that something can exist even though it is contradictory in nature, given that both the Federation that is inaccessible from here is giving us warnings, and that inaccessible Federation is also the result of the collective creation of the people of Earth, as they are mirrors of one another. So, placed in layman's terms, the Federation is issuing warnings to us because the people of Earth want it to be so. Existing here from one 5D point of view as a separate Federation entity, and also from Earth's point of view as the creation of a collective unconscious. Okay, I understand. But I still don't understand why it cannot be accessed from there, since being a collective unconscious or not, it does exist simultaneously. You said it was because they claim they have nothing to do with the Earth problem, but we know that's a lie. Everything is run from Saturn, and they do have a lot to do with the Earth's problem because they are a reflection of humans, and vice versa. So they can't wash their hands and walk away. This is unity, and both sides are involved. We simply cannot access it from here, because we are not humans. It is as simple as that. So, in order to be able to access that part of the Federation created by the humans, we must contact that Federation through humans. It seems to me you are giving Earth people all the responsibility for what's happening, including what happens in 5D. While I see it as two sides of the same coin. They are creating us, as well as we them. And as it was with the example of myself, Gosha is here because my 5D self decided so. So, chicken or the egg? My 5D self created my 3D self. Taking it further, 5D Federation created 3D people, and then the vicious circle perpetuates, no? We can only access a phantom part of that Federation. It is akin to fighting a fire, only watering the flames, which are the most visible part of a fire. The water would only go through the flames and would never be able to quench the fire. You need to water the base of the fire, the cause of the fire. In this case, the mayhem and the mess inside the heads of the people living on Earth. That is the root cause of the problem. From here, we cannot access the problem. The people in the Federation here are powerless as well, because they are in 5D, like we are. You ask about Saturn. All we find in Saturn are more bureaucrats, not even taking the responsibility of the problem, bouncing that responsibility to one another. And that is because it is not their responsibility, it is the humans. Still though, they make very tangible decisions that are not good for humans. They do. They may not see it, but those tangible decisions are being ordered by the collective unconscious of humanity. Why, though, they want you out? Why they don't want to solve the root of the problem? Why impede your work if they had nothing to do with that root? It's all too wobbly for me to understand. Because they don't know the root cause of the problem. You can only see the root cause of the problem from a density above 5D. They are part of the problem, but only a reflection of the base problem, human collective mind. Why not 5D people mind? Why just human? For me, it's a unity. I might as well say it's 5D people's base problem, since humans are ETs. As humans are ET, that's why they are a reflection of the Federation and vice versa. What is relevant is that the Federation from 5D is incapable of solving the problem, because it can only be solved from below. They don't allow it. Taking control of the media would be very crucial in fixing the root problem. They, as in Federation, are the result of the human collective. The humans don't allow us to interfere. You say it's important, then they must be convinced that us taking over mass media is the key, because it is one of the keys at least. Humans don't allow the bad ones to interfere either, and they are. My mom has nothing to do with the Illuminati telling her lies through the media. If she knew they were lies, she wouldn't allow it. That's because they are not acting out of their personal power, but out of a collective matrix. That's why I and Jung call it the collective unconscious, because they are incapable of seeing it or even acknowledging that it exists. Okay, who must be convinced? The human collective. And that's why we have been so hard at work awakening the masses. Precisely that's why. How many signatures are needed? It is not a question of signatures. It is a question of reprogramming humans to an unconscious level. Signatures would only represent a will that may or not be a reflection of their true wants. But let's say it is a true reflection of their wants, then we would need at least 3.5 billion signatures, taking in account unreals as well, as I cannot have data on the real ones. That would be in the area of some 750 million. Next day. As I said before, it can all boil down to no federation existing at all from the point of view of anyone on Earth, strictly from that angle. Seeing the problem from that angle alone to start with, you can see that what is going on Earth is just a reflection coming out of the law of mirrors in its highest expression. Because as humans are inside a vicious circle of seeing only or mostly bad things happen to them as coming from an exterior source, they are all in victim mode. So, as they are in a victim mode, they feel helpless. They, as in the social animal, the one bulk that is the sum of the collective unconscious. I like that Jung's term and use it. So, from that unconscious, they manifest things for themselves, things that reflect that state of being and consciousness. So, the mentality of poor little helpless me, a simple citizen that only lives day to day and has hardly enough money for food, and the government is corrupt, etc. And that will only feed and reinforce the attitude and the mentality of those other people, just more humans, that are in places of power. Those in lower places of power, but still power, also come mostly from a life and from a position of thinking and living with a lack mentality. So as they are coming from the same mentality, they will tend to go crazy once in power and tend to greed because they want to amass as much wealth as they possibly can while they are in office. So you can see how one mentality there feeds another, causing more greed among the ones with some power. Even all the way to the very top, to the Illuminati and all those. Because even though those at the very top may not live in lack mentality, they do live in fear. Fear of being discovered by the people who they know that only by sheer number they are more, and hence much more powerful than themselves. So they live in the fear of being discovered by what they call the lesser ones. As they have that mentality that was also fed by the allowance of the people, they feel superior to the majority of the population, and fed with the fear of being discovered, resort to deception, lie, and manipulation, as in using their worldwide controlled media to ensure the population in mass does not even know what is really going on about anything at all. So that is the matrix, the blinding of the mass of the population by means of mind control, perception control, that will in turn create all the values with which the whole world works with. The context frame of what is called reality or real. Basically, this means that the simple people in mass, using the collective unconscious, are the creators of the matrix and everything that goes on in it. To the point that they themselves are the creators of the ones that are guiding and misguiding them into creating a false reality against them all. So, coming back to the Federation, objectively an agency of sort cannot interfere with or in a problem of the nature of the one going on Earth, not because some law does not permit it, although those laws do exist and many times are also at work here, but let's leave this simple. They cannot interfere because even if they did, they would not know where to start or where to interfere or manipulate what is going on. There are no cages to remove, or hardly any. For better or worse, humans do live in a prison for their minds, but of their own making. It is true that the ones in power on Earth manipulate them all, the population. But one step back, they are manipulating them all because the masses are in a state of mind that permits it all to happen. As I have pointed out many times, and David Icke as well, if many people, not even the vast majority, did not comply in following any regulation, there would be nothing the ones in power could do to impose such a regulation on them. Power in the numbers, because that is what creates the reality, the base collective unconscious. We recently saw it work in a positive way with the collapse of WhatsApp and some Wall Street movements as well. I understand, thank you. It must be explained though a bit more, because we also said that it was them in control of it all, cabal being federation basically. So we must tie in that idea with what you say here, that they wouldn't know where to start. Eventually we'll get there. This is a case of both angles being true, and people must understand that things are not one or the other, but both existing at the same time. But in this case, I do see the answer to that pickle as simple. Because as the collective unconscious on Earth creates their governments, hence the saying that people only get the governments they deserve, the people of Earth with such collective unconscious do not stop their creative powers there, but with the very same mechanism they do go on to create anything and everything that has remotely anything to do with them, humans. So the Federation controlling them, the humans, is nothing more than another level of the same government that they have created for themselves. Just a step over, but more of the same. Because they let them be and let them develop their own vices. And as I have explained, the Federation is made up of the same people they regulate, being shadows and reflections of one another. As I have said before, humanity is not a race, but a biosuit to mix countless star races as one, to have a human experience. So even though we could convince the Federation to intervene directly in favor of the people of Earth, there wouldn't be any way to manipulate, to do something in particular, because anything they could do would be military, with a humongous death toll we are trying to stop in the first place. Stop injections and remove the worldwide scam would be a good start. Let humans figure it out after that. Not only a good start, that is just about all that matters now. So, and as I have been saying for long now, there is no use for vast stellar war fleets with dramatically powerful dreadnoughts, because the problem is not of that nature. It is a mental perception problem, not a classic alien invasion. So, there are ways to intervene, like taking over the media, as the Taigetan's plan had stated. But just about everything that can be done can and will bring about a negative rebound. But as we've stated before, in this case, where death by forced inoculations is occurring, then there is no moral standard or barrier not to intervene even in a military way. But as you can see, this is a very complex scenario. However, in general, you don't need the Federation to intervene, as that would go strongly against the felt free will of the population, mentally controlled or not, and would bring a strong rebound of hatred and of fright, and a large variety of consequences we cannot fully foresee, but with devastating consequences. People must live and must see the consequences of their not acting. They must see the consequences of blindly giving away their power to people of authority. And this includes people of authority who also blindly give away their power to other people of authority, who will repeat that again and again with devastating consequences we can all see today. People will see into the trickery of the cabal sooner or later, and will eventually react. The problem is, how many deaths will that cost? So I do see and understand the need to make a media takeover in an invasive style, taking some parameters into consideration, like seeing that it is not needed to disclose who it really was, as in non-humans. Granted. But coming back to the original question, in the end it is the people of Earth that create a collective unconscious. That is the sum of all their agreements of perception, and therefore agreements of reaction and action, the ones who are manifesting everything for themselves. So the so-called broken shoes are the creator gods, even if they do not understand or see this. I am perfectly aware that things are not seen as the same or with the same perspective from the ground, like stuck in traffic in a car, thinking of your bills to pay before the month is over, and my perspective, sitting on a very large starship looking down on you all with a nice window, while thinking all this, eating chocolate ice cream. But humans do create everything that affects them, their reality. The collective, the little broken shoes, are the creators of their own problems, and they are also the ones who hold the solution to all their problems, and learn this they will, sooner or later. They are the gods. As any one person has an unconscious from which it creates its entire life, they also contribute to the creation of their collective unconscious that will manifest from that space the entire dynamic of their social structure on Earth. But that collective unconscious does not stop there. That in turn will add up to create an even greater, larger collective consciousness, of which other star races also help form, and of which we are all part of. So, as I said above, the humans also create the extraterrestrials that are in the Federation, and the Federation that governs, controls them all, because we are all creators of a greater collective unconscious. Many may say that we here talking to you all are too human. I'll answer hell no. All you are seeing is the part you can relate to. The other part you cannot see. But having said this, we are all interconnected much more than what can be seen at first. Being co-creators of that larger collective unconscious, many things will be the same. So even clothing and shoes, and habits and jewelry will be the same or near the same. That is because it comes from the very same collective unconscious. It just happens that from the perspective of someone on Earth, they simply cannot see this I am talking about. So in general, the Federation cannot be convinced to act because it does not even know how to act in the first place. So going to see Federation brass from here will not change their mindset. But the ones who create everything from base up are the ones who control the Federation. They control each other. From here, there is very little an isolated species can do to help. The door to see them opens only from Earth plane, not from here. Because there is not here and there, as in Saturn and Earth, because it is all the same unit. The problem is on Earth, of Earth, and must be solved from Earth. They can stop it all, collectively. Because, as I said before, what is happening in the world right now is a reaction to the mass awakening that caused the ones in power to go into serious fear, as they have been discovered, and it would be only a question of time before the people would go and kick in their doors and lynch them all. Okay, another point. You keep saying, which I do understand, but must challenge a bit, that it's humans creating the Federation and what goes on in it, since it's all what's coming out of human collective unconscious. Okay, but since we are all one and connected, why can't it be said the reverse, that what's happening on Earth is coming from the Federation's collective unconscious? Isn't the manifestation faster from 5D than from 3D? Which would mean that what they are on the collective unconscious level projects faster than what human unconscious collective in 3D is. Here, manifestation is slower. So, with that being said, we would also need to address the collective of the races in 5D as much as directing ourselves to humans, no? It's not only humans create us in 5D. I see it also, if not more, we in 5D create you in 3D. Example of that, mirrors that you up there create on Earth. 5D people are not mirrors of 3D people, it's the reverse. Following the same pattern, 3D problems could be also mirrors of 5D problems. What are your thoughts on this? All in your question is valid, making this a several level super complicated soup. But as I have said before, what is valid from one point of isolated view may not be so from another. And the fact is that from the surface of the planet, living there, in so-called real life, the Federation is quite inconsequential, like inexistent, as it has always been inexistent. So, you can or must see this problem of Earth from several perspectives, not only from a superior one, like the superior understanding of the awakened ones. So, we must understand and accept that from the point of view of the human collective and what is really real for them, is that there is a terrible bug out there that is killing many people, and the shot is the logical solution in the fight against this pathogen. That is real for them. And the rest of you are only wacko mental nutters, people who believe in dangerous conspiracy theories. That is their reality, and we, are the ones who are trying to impose another onto them. So, from the point of another density, observing and having our hands mostly tied up, all we can do is try to guide them through this, because it is something that they also must go through as part of their, natural evolution as a species, or else they will never learn. Many will suffer, but it will be their choice. As horrible as it sounds, it is of their planning. Because the fact is, there is only so much we can do from here or from anywhere. And the Federation, using any excuse or logical or illogical explanation, will do nothing again. That I do call negative, permissive, regressive, whatever. Again, perspectives. The fact is that they will do nothing again. Again? They did nothing during the Second World War, during the First World War, during Civil War, during Napoleonic Wars, during Dark Ages, Inquisition, Roman times. They never ever do anything. Yes, they do intervene whenever they think it is right, but you can argue that it is not the Federation but one or another member, race, whatever, of the Federation. Like the Taigetans now, as an example. From our point of view, we see this as not fair, and it is not. But seeing one or another perspective, there will always be one where it is not fair. Next day. What I said yesterday is the base of everything. You are not a physical being having a spiritual experience. You are not a spiritual being having a physical experience either. You are the source, the absolute, all-knowing oneness, imagining things. entertaining and attaching itself to its own ideas. The base of what I'm attempting to explain is that being the absolute, you are outside time, you are outside space. This means that the principle of non-locality applies to you, and the principle of no time as well. Those are also imaginary ideas as well. So everyone you have been in previous lifetimes still exists. It is all simultaneous, even if you are experiencing things in a perceptual linear way. Everything is at the same time. You are not one person. You are the result of all the countless other people and beings you were before and still are, because they are still there. So, in principle, you are a conglomerate of people. You are a community. Everyone is. What people call 3D is a base density. Using densities as examples, because I sustain there aren't any, not as they describe them to be. They are more ideas and agreements. 3D is the lowest density that still can hold the concept of I, of self. Go lower, you lose it. Too basic. Being the base, it is also the most expanded one. Like a figure 8, it comes back to where it starts. A person is the result of a conglomerate of past lives that are still lives in progress somewhere, all intermeshing and intercommunicating through the ether to form you. That's where the you resides, not in your brain. The brain is only the translator into what you call perceptual physical. All those lives share information. That is your thoughts, only filtered through the lens of the brain into small usable bits that are also relevant to who you are today. This is also why people can tap into the so-called Akashic records. It is the field, another common term. Only there, reaching into concepts that are not necessarily yours or of your past variants. Each person is formed by others who are in a lesser expanded state, yet still the same person. And the point of attention, the returning into the you know, is only because you are holding on to a stage. And as stages are, you will move to another. So the more you expand, the more experiences you accumulate, more people you have assimilated as you. Ultimately, every single person that exists, of every conceivable race, animal, plant, and mineral, is a variant of you. And expanding this even more, they are all nothing other than ideas in your imagination. So a person is the result of many, according to each one's level of understanding. And each person also will be a part of a larger one, more expanded, perhaps no longer in human form. A planet, a sun, a constellation, a galaxy. All sentient, all conscious, and containing everything each individual being has. Each being is a little fragment of something bigger, and that in turn is another fragment of something even bigger, and bigger and bigger. Everything that is, everything that exists, is nothing but thought forms. The primordial component of the entire universe is thought, is consciousness. And the difference between one thing and another is nothing more than an idea. One of the main elements that cohere many fragments into larger being is, of course, thought and ideas. So it is the idea that they have about what reality is or should be. Those are perceptual agreements. And they form what we call the collective unconscious. What is the collective unconscious? It is the tacit, non-discussed paradigm of reality as a set of agreements of a community of people. The laws of physics, for example, are part of that collective set of agreements, but are only valid within that paradigm. This creates a conceptual reality bubble, collective unconscious, where things work in a certain way there by agreement. So from that point of view, whatever needs to be done has to be defined by that set of agreements. So parting from this, as a start, because I have not finished yet, I can say that the only way to fix a problem that is occurring inside a certain reality bubble must be from within, because the laws and agreements coming from outside may or may not apply to them. In other words, the only ones who create their own reality are the humans. And whoever is outside the reality bubble frame may only help but cannot impose a change upon the inhabitants of another realm, because they simply cannot come to understand the more expanded point of view, thought forms and concepts of another reality bubble. It is true, you cannot change people, you can only offer. So imposing a solution will only bring about temporary results. And the people who are the creators of their own perceptual bubble will always gravitate to who and what they were before. Because you can remove a person from the matrix, but you cannot remove the matrix from a person. They are the matrix. They are the creators. And wherever they go, they take it with them. It is very different to extract a person, several even, from the planet, the matrix, and insert them into another, where they will experience other things that will expand their understanding more, and therefore can adjust to the new reality bubble. And another is to try to impose the whole new reality bubble, in this case 5D, into a 3D reality bubble, because it will not fit in it. Their minds are not ready. So they must grow on their own, make their own mistakes. And as parents would, people in other more expanded reality bubbles can only be guides, only being able to intervene directly if the whole reality paradigm is about to be completely destroyed. It looks to be that this is what is happening on Earth now. But even with such level of atrocities going on, it may still be seen as a learning process humanity must go through. Answering your unasked question in the case of Alpha Centauri, that was a 5D planet within a 5D reality bubble. In the case of Earth, it is another bubble, another matrix within the matrix. anything the Federation would do to liberate Earth would only bring temporary results, and in no time they would go back to their old destructive ideas. They need to grow and to learn by experience. But the 3D bubble was imposed on the Lyrians. Why not unimpose it now? It is an option, and if it were up to me, I would, in a heartbeat. But it is not up to me, so the best I can do for now is to empower the humans to solve their own problems. Like the problem now, that people are living in very dangerous parallel realities, even sharing the same room there on Earth. Their levels of understanding are simply so different, they no longer can relate to one another. Bug or no bug, both sides totally convinced they hold the truth. So there is a massive separation, a fracture. Timelines are fractured. Remember, each person is a timeline, and only share a so-called collective one when they agree in perception. And they obviously do not agree now. So, the union is the only thing that can save the planet, as they united against what's up. If they could unite, then no evil could touch them, and the bug problem could proceed no further. The people who are in fear of the bug are in a real state of fear and truly believing that is their reality. It is not false to them. It is to you, it is to us, but it is hard truth reality for them. You cannot think for an instant that they, as the masses of people go, would be able to understand you, because they would need to learn so much, so many things, before to even have the base to begin to understand your way of seeing the world and the problem. So that creates resentment, I know, but that is not the way. The masses cannot understand the so-called awakened ones. They simply do not have the necessary background in knowledge to even begin to understand you. So it is up to the awakened ones to be compassionate and empathetic towards the non-awakened ones, for lack of better words. They cannot understand the awakened ones, but the awakened ones can understand the matrixed ones. So approach them with kindness and love, and in another manner, less aggressive, explain that there is another way to explain this crisis. But you did say there are enemies too. I knew you'd say that. And they are. They are because it is them who are creating the mess because of their sheer ignorance. And with their ignorance, they are pulling down everyone else. But you cannot fight this with the same mentality that created the problem in the first place, Albert Einstein. Fight the enemy with empathy and love, with understanding. It hurts the low energy field the most. Protect yourselves in the process. Hello, my brother and my sister. I know that you were ordered to take the temperature on the head, but it is invasive and it is not necessary. In the arm, by the elbow on the inside, you can have as good a temperature reading. And not saying, "Not in the head, you piece of shit, are you brain dead or what?" as a crude example. I know it is difficult, but as the matrixed sheeple will not unite, it is the job of the awakened ones to approach the problem in another, more intelligent way. May not always be possible, even practical, but it may be the best you can do as individuals. How? uniting. How do you unite? With love and integration. How do you unite and integrate? With empathy.